All right, what's up, everybody? I switched my screencasting software, so I believe I can make videos longer than 10 minutes now. I've got a different program for it. Um, Hopefully it works pretty good, so we'll see. So we've got our app, but it does nothing except change these things here. We need to start dealing with the timer. So one of the stories here, story 11, they want when you click reset, the timer should stop. The value of the break length returns to 5, session returns to 25, and the time left returns to its default state. So we can get a baseline of that implemented, and we're going to want to put that on this reset button here. So we can make a new method on our class called HandleReset. And we'll say this.set state, and if that's, we'll leave it like this. If that this.set state, and it wants us to return our break value to 5 and our session value to 25. So we'll say break value 5, session value back to 25. It wants the time back to the original time. So we'll just say time is 25 times 60 seconds in a minute times 1,000 milliseconds in a second. And you can give React these things, and JavaScript will compute them. You don't have to give it the final answer. You can give it something that needs to be computed, and that works fine. And this is just I like writing it that way, so it's easy to understand what we're doing. So okay, 25 minutes times 60 seconds times 1,000 milliseconds in a second. And it's really easy to understand right off the bat. So they want us to do those things. They also want us to stop the timer. We haven't built the timer yet, so for now, let's just leave it like that. We'll save that, and then we'll check it over here. And I have a live view. You may only be able to use the debug view. I have a paid account, so I think they're pretty similar, except live view may update automatically. But you should be able to test it regardless. So if you move those around, we actually gotta assign it to the we gotta assign it to the button before it'll work. So we'll pass it in as handle reset, and on our we want to pass it into controls. Handle reset, and on click on our bottom second button here, handle reset, and we'll pass it in our main app component down here. We'll say handle reset equals this dot handle reset, which is right here. So now it should work. Go in here, change these, hit reset, and it returns to its original value. So that's working. That's good. So next we gotta handle our PlayPause button. That's our next goal. We've got that one button taken care of, but we need handle PlayPause. This is where it gets a little tricky. So one thing we're doing in our controls is, if we're using active, we're showing the play button. If it's active, we're showing the pause button. If we're not active, we're showing the play button. So the first thing we need to call on this set state active, and we'll make it the opposite of this state.active. So we'll just toggle it every time that button's clicked. We save that. Oh, again, you gotta pass it into the component. It's hard to remember this stuff while talking at the same time. Okay, handle PlayPause and say onClick. Handle PlayPause. Down here, pass it in. We can break this out like this so we can read it a little better here. Okay, handle. PlayPause. This dot handle PlayPause. Oh, now it should work. There we go. Now it's switching back and forth what we want. Okay, but how are we going to do this timer? So basically we need something. So we have our time state here broken down into milliseconds. We need to make something that will subtract 1 second from this every second. So how do we do something like that in this React app? Well, we need a function that's going to call setState every 1 second. So how do we build something in JavaScript that will accomplish that for us? How do we call a function every X amount of time? And the answer to that is setInterval. So in this React context, we want to say setInterval. How setInterval works is it takes 2 arguments. It takes a function, and then it takes a time in milliseconds. So the function you give it is the function that's going to get called, and the time in milliseconds is how often that function is going to get called, every how many milliseconds. So if we put 1,000 in here, that's going to get called every second. If we put 2,000 in here, it's going to get called every 2 seconds. If we put 2 in here, it's going to get called almost instantly, repeatedly. So we want 1 second. We have to come up with a function here. We can just make an anonymous function that calls this dot set state. In here, we say time, and this dot state dot time minus 1,000. So we're going to take a second off every second. We're going to take 1,000 off of the number in milliseconds every second. In effect, counting down. But we also need to define the set interval. So later on we can stop it. So we'll just call it this Pomodoro equals set interval, right? And then when you want to stop a set interval, you need to clear it. So let's just see if this works right now. So start with this and build from here. So when we hit play, we should get our set interval function firing. And there it is. But how do we stop it now? That's not stopping it. That's just stacking set intervals on top of each other, and that's not what we want. Our reset works, but it doesn't stop the timer, it just resets the timer. So let's first put something on reset here. We'll say, on reset, we'll say clear interval. And we just put in this dot Pomodoro. Now let's see what happens. Our pause button still is not hooked up, but let's see if reset works. Okay, reset works. So that's all you have to do to stop that set interval is called clear interval. And that's why I'm defining it as this.pomodoro. That way we can reference it throughout our class here. You know, it's this in reality. It's just like this.state belongs to app. This.pomodoro also belongs to app. So we also want the pause button to work here. How do we set that up? So we have that active. We have this active piece of state. So active means, okay, active is true, the timer is moving. If active is false, it's not moving. So we can actually say if this.state.active, we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. So if the state is active, we actually want to clear the interval because the timer is going, the pause button showing, we actually want to stop it. So we say this.pomodoro, clear interval, this.pomodoro. However, if it's paused, we actually want it to play. So that's when we're going to say copy and paste, or cut and paste this back up there. But we also want to toggle the states here. So we're going to say, up here we'll say this.setState active. We can just say active false right here. We can just get rid of this line for now. And here we can say this.setState active true. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Let's see how that works. Okay, so it's counting down. We can stop it. We can start it again. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. And we can obviously reset it. But what happens when session gets all the way down? It's supposed to automatically kick over to break. And when break gets all the way down, it's supposed to kick on back to session. So for testing purposes here, we can go up here. Let's change our session value 25. Just put in 0.1. Okay. How are we going to test this? It's still doing 25, even though we wanted our session to be really short. So in order to test this out, we're going to bring in a new piece of state. I'm going to call it touched. And we're going to set it to false. So this touched piece of state, someone comes in the app or they reset it. What if they adjust their session length down to 10 minutes and hit play? Our starting time is 25. How are we going to convey to the timer, no, actually we want it to be 10, not 25? How are we going to tell the timer that? So we need to add in a step so we can adjust this based on the session length. So when we create our timer here in PlayPause, we need a way to say, hey, we want whatever's in our session, whatever we set. But on the flip side of that, what if someone's just playing it and they pause it and now they hit play again? We want it to start back up from 24:58. We don't want it going back to whatever set here. We want it based on this. So we have two different scenarios, really. So that's why I'm bringing touched. So if someone hits that play button once, we're going to flip touched over to true. I'll show you, it'll be easier once you see it in action. So we can say if this dot state dot touched, we're going to do something. If not touched, we're going to do something else. So if it's touched, meaning someone's already started their timer the way they want it with whatever session is. We'll just call this that Pomodoro. The active true. However, if it hasn't been touched, we're going to say this dot set state. We want our time to actually be this dot state dot session value, but that would be 25 initially, and we don't want to set it to 25. We need to actually do the same thing we did before. It's in minutes times 60 times 1,000. So we want to set it to the session value, whatever that session value is. We also want to set touched to true, because now they've hit the play button for the first time. And after they hit that play button for the first time, that's the only time we want to set whatever that session value is up here. Session length, say it's 25 or whatever it is. So I've got the 0.1 in there just for testing. You'll see in a second. Only that first initial time do we want it to go over. Every subsequent time they hit the button, they're just playing and pausing what they initially set. So that's where that touch comes in. So once you hit it once, that's why we're going to say touched is true now. And we're going to say active is true. And this is the tricky part right here. We want this, before we start our set interval, we want to make sure that that time is switched over to whatever that session value is. So if they didn't adjust it and it's still 25, this isn't going to change state. State is going to be the same, because this would be 25 and times 60 times 1,000, which is what we said originally. Okay, so no big deal. The state's not changed, but we're checking to see if it has, say, someone went to 10. We want to make sure that that time is changed before we start the timer. So let's break this out. Just for readability, we'll break it out like this. And then we're going to do a callback to set state. So right here, after the bracket, before the parentheses, we'll put a comma. We're going to do an anonymous callback function here. I would normally do this with async await, but it didn't seem to be supported in CodePen. I don't usually work in CodePen. I usually work in my own create React app environments. So this is different, but you can do it this way. So we do an anonymous function. That anonymous function, then we'll say this .pomodoro. Basically, we just want to make sure that this state.time here is changed to what we want it to be. Okay, so that looks pretty good. One other thing here is, now we can say when we hit handle reset, so we'll break this out here, where we reset all our times here. We can also reset that special touched. We'll reset touched to false, and we'll also reset active to false while we're at it. So, when someone resets it, now want them to be able to adjust that session again. So, okay, I got ahead of myself a little bit. Let's put this back to 25 like it's supposed to be. Okay, so our goal is now, okay, if we change it to 20, we want this to start at 20. So see, now we've accomplished that goal. And when we pause it here and hit play again, we don't want it to go to 20. We want it to do whatever we had, you know. And now we pause it here at 1947. Say now if we reset it, okay, it's going to go back to 25. But if we want 20 again and hit play, okay, yes, it will go back to 20. So that's why that touch is very important. It's a very subtle, kind of complicated thing maybe for a beginner to understand. But we have two scenarios while hitting that play button. One where we set the person's session length to time, and one where we're just pausing whatever time it is and restarting the timer normally. So there's two different use cases right there. So I think that's enough for this video. And then you'll see in the next video why. So I'm going to set this back to 0.1 again. It's for testing. And you'll see why I did it. Did I screw something up? I'm not sure why that's not showing up as 0.1. Oh, that's handle reset. Whoops. Hold on. Up here in state is where I want to set that. Okay, so let me open up that live view again. I'm showing you why real quick why I have it to 0.1. We want to focus on the transition now. The transition between session to break. So right now we haven't really done anything to set that up. So when we start a timer, it's just going to be a short timer like this. And what happens when it runs out to its end? Okay, it just rolls around again and makes no sense. It's counting down from an hour on session where it should have gone to break and counted down for 5 minutes. So this is just a quicker way to set it to 0.1. You don't have to wait 25 minutes to test your app. You can, you have to be realistic about how you're going to test your app. You don't want to sit around just staring at a timer. That's why we set that to 0.1. So when we come back, we're going to get into how are we going to make sure that when this expires, our original session expires, how are we switching over to 5 minutes? How are we going to switch this and put it into break mode? So when we come back, we will get to the bottom of that. All right, we'll see you next time.